Herobrine history. Heroine. Same thing. Anyway, hello all you crazy people out there. My name is Dragonite, and welcome back to Harvest December. In some place in town, it appears that it's raining. This is bad, the boy muttered quickly as he worked and tried to prevent his stall from being blown away. On Rokushiki Island, locals, even students, were allowed to set up shop during the festival to earn pretty cash and add to the festivities. Staff from the Ichimonji family were passing out vinyl sheets to help shelter the stalls from rain. He had received one from them too. Using the thick ropes, he tied it down. He would bring home the ingredients, cooking pans, and cutlery, but the rest would have to brave the rain under the vinyl sheets. I doubt this will do much good, though, he grumbled under his breath. He was never the positive sort, and often complained. If the weather report was right, he would have no business today. Besides, the festival tomorrow didn't look too promising. He knew it was only one participant tomorrow. Megara Ichimonji was in the same class as he was. He remembered her pale, ghostly face and thought there was no prospect of her winning against the Nanaki Rokushiki. It was depressing to think about at the festival, considering that his pocket money would come directly from his sales. Hey, have you finished there? He called back to the girl cleaning up the plates behind him. To him, she was the only bright spot in his day. Often young couples began to date after the festival, just as the people got together at school events. There wasn't anything they could do about the storm, but they weren't going to carry the cutlery to their house nearby. He might even get lucky when they were alone. Are you finished? No response. Why was she being so quiet? Hit! A trail of water ran down his neck and then down his back. He shivered from the cold, but soon relaxed as her warm hand pressed against the back of his neck. You surprised me there. Thank you. She pulled him backwards. It took him a while to regain his consciousness, and when he did, he realized he had been thrown against the metal pole that held the makeshift stall up. What had just happened? He wanted to ask her, but he couldn't speak from the pain. His body lay limply on the floor. Before him lay a bent metal pole. After a few moments, he was sure the stall would topple and come crashing down on top of him. There's been a lot of people being punched out today. I'm just pointing that out there. Oh no, that's something I rented. I have to give it back, he thought absently. He couldn't think straight. The rain came down the blue vinyl sheet, rattling noisily like the sound of bullets. Everything, all he could hear and all he could see, everything made no sense. It was surreal. Huh? What? Have you finished? He asked in a daze. In his mind, he was still cleaning up. He saw a light flicker before him. He watched as a shadow stretched up from the ground, engulfing his surroundings. And then there was a light, snaking through the darkness. That can't be! He had seen that before, last year. After the Rokushiki festival, those patterns of light had covered the skin of the participants as they fought. Thank you, my god. The pattern of God. Hi! Die, 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 God! She screamed. The fist came down. It felt as if she had punched right through the very core of his being. He forgot the pain. He only felt the impact and the shock of her attacks. What would become of his body? Her fist came down. Many of the locals of Rokushiki Island had a short temper. He was no stranger to fights himself, so he knew how badly he had been hurt to lose his consciousness. But this was different. The more she beat him, the more his senses came alive. Why? I should have believed Dad when he told me. Never trust a woman. As soon as Dad said that with a smile, Mom had swatted him on the head. And then the realization. As the girl before him laughed in ecstasy when she pummeled him with her fist, she looked beautiful, more alive than she had ever looked when they were alone. Ow. Throughout the entire town, embodiment, gratitude, curses, howling, violence, screaming, violence again, silence, joy, howling again, repeat. The girls howled and howled and howled. Okay. Festive Force. That was something. We were doing the best as we can. For now, please run and hide. We could hear screaming coming from the other end of the telephone. Ruki pulled the receiver away from her ear. Ruki, rather. More shouting. We couldn't hear clearly what the man was saying, but we could guess what it was about. No, you must hide. Don't try to contain her. She may be your daughter, but now she is not herself. You must concentrate on your own safety, Ruki advised calmly before she put the phone down. All the girls on the island, it appears they have all undergone the ritual. Fun! How is that possible? Who performed it? The god himself, it appears. We sat in a circle on the floor. Ruki was alarmingly pale, perhaps from losing too much blood. If she had something to lean on, she might have slumped against it. I thought you had to question every willing participant before they were chosen. We do, but that is only the ritual for humans to decide who is worthy of reaching out to God. You mean it was meaningless? Yes. I thought the authority could be used like a tool, but to think you didn't need to meet any criteria to use it. Well, I guess it really is like a tool. Tools are made out of necessity, to perform a certain action. As time passed, they were reshaped for efficiency, and in the end, they would develop into something that anybody could use, as long as they knew how to use it. But this didn't seem the case. There isn't even the need for practice. There aren't that many situations where humans gets to practice using godly powers, I'd imagine. I nodded in agreement. Some people that have issues have a tendency to fail the ritual. There's the reason why we began to ask questions. Not only for safety, but also for propriety, Tomomi answered seriously. A god's powers are always present. So is salvation. But if the person is not worthy in the eyes of her peers, there will be discord. Authority, as Professor Konno puts it, cannot be used like a tool. We could lose religion. We could lose religion? We would lose religion. Excuse me? What are you saying? I'm saying if you're known to being a tsundere, you can't be dere all the time. Someone that is prickly for most of the time, but is occasionally shy and sweet. Prickly... So it's like oxymoron, except with personality types.
Hey.
That wasn't a very good example, Tomomi-san. But anyway, that's not the important part. Ugh, it's so noisy! Shiro clutched her head as if in agony. She was covering her ears. They're increasing by the minute. Soon, all of the females on the island will turn into monsters. The wind and rain beat against the shrine, causing the wood to creak. Our ears were on the brink of breaking from the continuous thundering of rain, but yet we could still hear the howling of the girls on the island. The phone rang again. Ruki sighed dutifully picked up the receiver. I suppose I should be grateful for this in these circumstances. She put the receiver down. The line is dead. Can we call back? Ruki shook her head. Even if we did, they would probably be no condition to pick up. Heh! Ruki crushed the receiver in her hand angrily. Why do things like this always happen to me? Like last year. Ow! You shouldn't excite yourself, Dr. Manaka sighed. But that has not happened. But now that this has happened, Rokushiki has no choice but to act as a mediator. Just to get things straight. Am I right to think that all of the girls around my age are influenced? Of course. I hate to say this, but yes. Is it R18? That's not how I describe it, but you got the idea. Yes, in other words. But that means that not everyone in this island has gone mad, right? I hope. You sound so uncertain. We sat in silence for a moment. We could hear the screams coming from the girls, but they sounded human and a bit animalistic at the same time. There was something daunting about listening to the voices of the people who had lost their minds. Is there any way to escape? In the storm? We have to save the injured too, but with the phone lines cut, I think you just crushed the phone yourself. We have to think of a solution. She ignored me. Defeat them all. They are too numerous. And we don't stand a chance against them. They're empowered by a god. Can't you, like, use those rubber band guns things? The chopstick guns? From, like, Chapter 6? June and July, rather? July, not June. Willpower. Willpower won't do you any good here. Then why don't we have the ritual done on ourselves as well? Yeah, we can't just sit here and do nothing. It's possible, but pointless in this case. Why? The powers will only work in an area near this mountain. The right time, place, ritual using the augmentation effects of the Kagami Crystal here. If you leave the premises, you will only be a regular human being with markings on your skin. What about Magari then? She has the god by her side. It's like having a transmitter and a receiver in one. The reason why the ritual was only done on these grounds was to prevent people who have failed from escaping. The situation is not something we are prepared for. The ritual was simply there to suppress and contain any powers that went haywire. The power itself was limitless. The question was how to control it. We must think of a way to rescue the injured, Miori said. She looked unhappy, but had accepted it was impossible to run away. Shall we risk it and run about saving the town people? Run about town saving the people? There are too many victims, too. And we can't possibly protect ourselves against them either. It would be meaningless if we just added to the number of people injured. The girls are a problem, but the weather isn't something we can ignore. I suppose, Miori answered simply, without disagreeing. She knew her suggestion wasn't a realistic one. And what are we supposed to do? Tomomi asked. She had thought and failed to come up with a solution. We need to disconnect Magari from the Rokushiki god. Everybody looked my way. Taking the example of the transmitter and receiver, We just need to destroy one or the other, which means defeating Megari or destroying the Kagami Crystal. That should make the girls on the island powerless. Wait, Masaki, you're forgetting about the premises. The fact that you need to be on the mountain to use the Kagami Crystal. How would you explain Megari's ability to perform the ritual without it, now that she's far away? She managed somehow. I don't know how, but there was a way. Wait, that was why Megari was within the premises when she fought with Ruki-san. If she didn't need the crystal in the first place, why would she stay near the shrine? Both of you are asking the right questions, I said. What do you Oh, no, now I should ask, what do you know? Ruki Rokushiki looked at me directly. She wasn't hostile now. She had chosen practicality over pride. Are you hiding something from us? It's no time to play games, you know? Yuki said, with her annoyance obvious. Because of maldistribution, Megari was able to perform the ritual of embodiment. But right after she left to her own ritual hall halfway, the only accessible Kagami Crystal was in the shrine, so she stayed in the mountains hiding to draw on its powers till Ruki-san found her. Misaki, there is no time for your long-winded explanations. Get to the point. Yuki was right. I nodded and continued. Megari is using a different Kagami Crystal now to augment her powers. Inaki and the others from the Rokushiki families looked as if they were in shock. How big is the Kagami Crystal in the shrine? Big enough to put your arms around, Nanaki replied, still in a daze. If there was a cave several meters high packed with Kagami crystals, how large would be the area it covers? The entire island, Naomi said surely. But there is no place like... Megara took me to such a cave. I told them where it was, and they all looked dumbfounded. I felt terrible telling them when I had promised Megari it was a secret. Why don't you tell us sooner? Then Ruki sighed, said, No, I suppose I should be grateful that you even told us. Thank you. Anyhow, my guess is that Megari is there right now. The boy is right. It was the voice of the other gods. Shiro looked surprised, her mouth started moving by itself. Even our god cannot perform a deed like this without the help of the Kagami crystals. You are? The rest and the others. The other half of the Rokushiki gods combined. Should I borrow the words of the one who speaks now? I would like to describe myself as the collective thought of the many gods that were absorbed. We are not one, but many. Your presence is an honor to us. Ruki and Nanaki bowed their heads low. Daughters of Shiki, there is no time for formalities now. We cannot waste a minute. Yes, the priestesses agreed, but they looked nervous and humbled. The main god, should I call him, is the one that left in Megari. So I decided to make it my job to ask the rude questions. Correct. Then why did you decide to come to us? We do not agree with his decisions. We have decided to rid of him and remain one. You, a god, intend to slay your god? Correct, they replied in Shiro's voice. The wind had grown into a typhoon ripping through the town. The rain beat down mercilessly on those who stood victorious and those that lay on the ground beaten. The skies were dark. No light came from above. After a raindrop fell from a cloud, it reflected the town beneath it. Girls fighting everywhere. Destruction. Ah! They made panting sounds, whether from agony or excitement, nobody knew. The girl dodged a blow dealt by another, but missed her step. The blow cut into her skin, burning. Despite her injuries, she did not stop. Her mind was heated. There was nothing else she thought of except to fight the one before her. Patterns of light snaked on their arms, lending power to the retaliating fist. Her opponent was young. She did not have much flesh to absorb the impact. Through her thin breast, she soon felt her knuckles hit a hard bone underneath. Not bad. Not the best hit, not bad at all. But not bad at all. It was enough to give her satisfaction, but she wanted more. Ah! The young girl looked down at the fist dug into her chest and smiled. This was what she was waiting for. It was something she never thought she would experience in her time. This was the power that she had been rejected from, just like many others before her. Why hadn't she been chosen? Why hadn't God chosen her? It was torture that she had faith, but she was not appreciated for it. It was unforgivable. The other girls, unchosen, were to watch from afar, never given a chance. Someone had just fought out of the ritual just to pretend. Even if they knew it was nothing but make-believe. Even if it was just a fight to lick their wounds. That would repeat every year, as the Rokushiki tradition would have it. This was the jealousy and despair of the unchosen. But not now. Things were different now. Ah! The girl flung her fist back, unheeding of the hand dug into her chest. The world shook. The impact was enough to take her consciousness. But that didn't matter, as long as she felt the surging power that ran through the surface of her skin. As long as she felt and knew that God was by her side. Another howl nearby. It hurt her ears, made her chest tighten. But she was happy. So was the girl before her. The howling gradually changed in pitch. Ah! For God! There was conviction. Every girl on the island was feeling the same thing. And instinctively, they knew where to go. Rokushiki Shrine. That was where they would crush the cursed tradition. The patterns on their skin glowed brighter. The glittering of their eyes faced the direction of the mountain. And we're back. This feels weird having someone else use my mouth when I don't intend to speak. We are sorry for your inconvenience. We have no other choice. There has been a change in the situation again. How much worse can this get? The girls are heading this way. If this wasn't an emergency, Shiro making conversation by herself would be something comical to watch. But we had no time to laugh now. But what is the reason our gods must fight each other? Why the disunion? Why the disunion? Ruki asked. She was finally coming to terms with the chaos. The Rokushiki is not one but many. Is it their way to be all and everything? Precisely so. Our disunion is what makes us what we are. We all carry different facets, and we are able to penetrate one another. But we still need a leader, a single mind to connect us all. So you are divided yourself into halves. One, a single mind with a will. The other, a collection of many thoughts that were submissive to the other half. Is that like a metaphor for how, like, hemispheres of brain works? And personality and stuff like that? That sounds like they're trying to make a metaphor for how brain works, although I'm not 100% sure if it's correct, because, I'll be honest, I'm not the most interested in brains. But why did you need to divide yourself in such a complex manner? They tried to be a bit of everything. Be a single god but many. Be a single thought but diverse. Exactly so. But there's no reason to kill one another, is there? Take another example from the Golden Bow, Shiro said. Slaying the king, Tomomi replied, her eyes widening in understanding. King? Not a god? Ao asked. In the past, a king was the closest a human being could be to a god, but still he was mortal, so of course he would grow old and weak. The people would not have a weak god, so the king would be killed before he left his prime. Similar, it is simply our way to kill the main god every now and then, to renew and metabolize ourselves. I see. So that's why you have even the need to divide yourself, even when you were on this secluded island with no enemies nearby. Tomomi and Takaki looked fascinated. Exactly. Our main god's ways are getting old. It is time for a change. I just wish you guys didn't decide now was the time when we are still here. Outside? Tell me how all the girls went through the ritual, I asked. It was not intentional. It just happened. What do you mean? The history of Rokushiki affected it all. We simply picked up the fury and the oppression that has been growing too long within those that were not chosen. But it was a necessity to choose the right candidates for the festival. We couldn't just let anybody. Yes, it was necessary. And so the situation was inevitable. So it would have happened anyway, Nanaki Rokushiki said. That's right. This festival is for the people that Rokushiki have neglected. It was payback time. I asked another question. I have a lot of trouble with the word asked. And I always say either axed, like A-X-E-D, or asked, like A-S-S-E-D. And I can't actually say the word asked. Because, I don't know, my accent is funny or something. Why didn't Megara come fight us herself? Why did she have to bring the other people into this? Our god was unhappy with the modern ways of Rokushiki. Rokushiki trembled at these words. A tame, prepared fight was not what it was meant to be. Originally, it celebrated the more primal instincts the chaos and violence people have. We, Rokushiki, have done everything and anything to please you. Was that not enough? We did not mind your ways, but our other half was unsatisfied. We cannot make decisions without agreeing as one. And now that you cannot do it, you will kill the other half, I continued. Yes, one of us will take over. Suddenly, we all felt Megara's presence, even when she was far away. There was a looming pressure in the air, as if the other half was daring us to do anything about it. He's an enthusiastic one, isn't he? Megari. Naomi! Naomi ignored Nanaki and stood up to leave in a daze. I will stop her. Wait, Naomi-chan, calm down. Let go of me. Ow! Tomomi was tossed aside. I have to save Megari. Go do what you please. Ignore us all, and if you don't want to know how to save her, I called out to her back. And how would you go about it? Naomi said as she inched closer to me, Her expression was hard and her eyes murderous. Naomi-chan, no! No. Instead of jumping on her like she usually did, Nono stopped Naomi in a bear hug. You can't go alone. You can't stop Megari by yourself. There is no other way. Why, may I ask, are you glaring at me like that? Arrogant. Keep talking. What, Yuki? Keep talking. Give her a suggestion, or Naomi will kill you. Really? Viciously. The best way to do something about the Kagami Crystal. She seemed satisfied with my... The best way is to do something about the Kagami Crystal. She seemed satisfied with my idea. She sat down to listen with Nono resting on her lap. But it's really hard to break those crystals. Even I had difficulty crushing one. And Nino Meia's daughter will be powerless outside of these premises. It doesn't have to be broken. The Fukuyama's now a way to contain its powers. Huh? We do? Oh, the breast enhancement machine. Of course that comes in handy. What's that? I felt awkward to explain, but still I made an attempt explaining the device that I saw at the Fukuyama house that managed to control the Kagami Crystal. You attached a sacred Kagami Crystal to a breast enhancement machine. Don't excite yourself, it's bad for your injuries. I'm not excited. Ow! Ruki clutched the side of her ribcage and rolled around in agony. Nanaki? It took Nanaki 2 tries to stabilize Ruki's injuries and heart, enough to carry out the conversation. I suppose we don't have any other choice under those circumstances. But there is another problem. Yes, there is. We have to find a way to get to the Fukuyama house without getting hurt. Ruki, Nanaki, and the others from the Rokushiki nodded. The locals on the island had a better idea of how dangerous the Rokushiki powers could be from their past experience in the festivals. They also knew it was nearly impossible. Another solution is to defeat Megari. That would stop the Rokushiki god. That faces the same problems as the previous plan. Do you really think you can fight through the horde and defeat Megari? Willpower. No, Naomi, don't complicate things, I interrupted. Serious. Naomi truly believed willpower would help. Of course, it has to be you to come up with some ridiculous plan. Go on, try to convince us all why you think you've got a good idea. Oh gee, thanks for the trust, I sighed. Yawn. Everyone looked at Ao, opening her mouth. It wasn't a situation to be yawning about. Aren't you a bit too relaxed in this situation? You'll get wrinkles if you frown too much. Ao laughed sleepily. Ruki looked murderous. Again. Do you think I can enjoy listening to the farce? What are you trying to say? Of course Masaki has something that will work. He has a dirty, twisted, calculating mind. Just let him get to the point. I'm going home. I stood up. I'm just trying to help. Why do I have to undergo the verbal abuse? Hey, don't run away now. Oni-chan, get a hold of him. Don't let him get away. Let me go. He's fun to toy with, Ao smirked. A minute later. Talk. I find it difficult after being beaten so badly my teeth feel loose. I was teaching you discipline out of love, Yuki declared. Please, we have no time. Can you tell us of your plan? We have a god on our side too. I think we can perform a ritual of our own. What are you saying? Shiro has offered to make me a god before. I thought perhaps that would be similar to the ritual of embodiment. Last December when I had moved to Tagami town, she had given me a choice to live with her forever. Rokushiki-san, can I ask you a favor? Speak. Can you teach Shiro how to channel your powers to people? There was a silence. Then, I see. That's something new for me. Shiro began talking to herself. I'll give it a go. Shiro scanned the room from left to right, choosing her candidate. Abracadabra! She flicked her finger. Abracadabra. How could you? That's a sacred ritual. Look. The dull patterns on Nanaki's skin began to glow slightly. How is that, Masaki? How do you feel? I asked Nanaki after the casual ritual. I feel God within me, Nanaki answered. So I was right. But the powers are weak. Nanaki closed and opened her fist. Can't be helped. It was pretty impromptu. I suppose the effect would be stronger if we did the entire ritual. Of course. An impromptu ritual can't work better than what we've been doing down the years. Ruki nodded vigorously. She seemed relieved to have salvaged some of her Rokushiki pride. Masaki, can I ask you a question? Dad raised his hand. Now we know we can perform the ritual. What does that change? Yes, we can do the same as we can do as the priestesses do. Nanaki, the powers you have now aren't Rokushiki's but Shiro's. What? Mizuho should know what I mean. Huh? Mizuho blinked. When you tried to get Madoui back, what happened? In January when she was sent back to Sakashima. I tried crossing the border, but we couldn't because we were influenced by... Oh. Her eyes widened in understanding. Rokushiki, you have a good memory. Rokushiki has no power over Shiro-sama. I also think it's possible to augment her powers using the Kagami Crystals here. That is not something we would have thought of. The priestesses looked stunned. But isn't it uncertain that Shiro-sama has enough control on our premises? We've experimented, Tomomi said definitively. The priestesses turned to her, willing to listen. When I explained the use of the Kagami Crystal to Masaki, we got Shiro-sama to transform her arm. She managed fine before she went through the Rokushiki ritual herself. She managed to use the Kagami Crystals to augment her powers without Rokushiki's help. The guards used her own body to send the powers to the girls on the island. It seems only fair we get to use the same tactic.